The city buzzed with relentless energy, a cacophony of car horns, footsteps on pavement, and the hum of distant construction. Alex Carter navigated this chaos like clockwork every weekday evening, weaving through throngs of people who seemed as hurried and disconnected as they were. They clutched their phone in one hand and a coffee cup in the other, feeling invisible amidst the sea of faces that blurred past them. It wasn't just the crowd, it was the weight of years of being overlooked, dismissed, even by those who should have mattered most. Alex had grown up in a household where favoritism wasn't subtle, it was glaring. Their sister Claire had always been the golden child, smart, pretty, talented. Claire could do no wrong. Meanwhile, Alex was the afterthought, the quiet sibling whose achievements barely registered. When Alex graduated at the top of their high school class, their parents shrugged it off. "You're smart," their mother said dismissively. "It's expected." But when Claire won second place in a regional art competition, their father framed her painting and hung it proudly in the living room. Years later, Alex still felt the sting of those moments. Despite everything, they'd carved out a life for themselves, a good one, objectively speaking. A degree from a prestigious university, honors upon graduation, a well-paying job at a tech startup. Yet none of it seemed to matter to their parents. Every milestone Alex reached was met with lukewarm praise or outright dismissal. And then came the inheritance. When their grandparents passed away 7 years ago, Alex dared to hope things might change. Surely their parents would finally see how much Alex had accomplished despite their neglect. The inheritance would be split equally, it was only fair, but fairness wasn't something Alex's family understood. Their parents handed over every penny to Claire without hesitation. Not a single explanation, not even an apology, just silence. That betrayal cut deeper than any insult ever had. Alex stopped calling home, stopped visiting, stopped pretending everything was okay when it so clearly wasn't. Cutting ties wasn't easy, but staying meant accepting a lifetime of pain. So Alex walked away. A few years later, Alex met Sam, where Alex was reserved. Sam radiated warmth and humor. He saw through Alex's carefully constructed walls and coaxed them into opening up. Together, they built a life filled with laughter and shared dreams. When they decided to get married, Alex didn't invite their parents or Claire. Instead, they surrounded themselves with friends who truly cared about them. It was small, intimate, perfect. Then came the twins Eli and Mia, and Alex's world shifted again. Pregnancy hadn't been easy. Between nausea, sleepless nights, and constant exhaustion, Alex relied heavily on Sam to keep them grounded. Holding their children for the first time was indescribable. Tiny fingers curled around theirs, fragile yet impossibly strong. For the first time in years, Alex felt whole. As Eli and Mia grew, Alex poured all their love and energy into raising them. They vowed never to make their children feel unseen or unimportant. Every bedtime story, every scraped knee kiss better, every proud moment celebrated was all intentional. Alex wanted Eli and Mia to know they were valued, cherished unconditionally. But there was always a shadow lingering at the edges of their happiness. Alex tried not to dwell on it, focusing instead on building a future untethered from the past. Still, some wounds ran too deep to fully heal. One Saturday afternoon, Alex heard a knock at the door. Opening it revealed two familiar figures standing awkwardly on the doorstep, faces lined with age, eyes pleading. Their parents. After 7 years of silence, here they were, smiling as if nothing had changed. "We just wanted to see our grandchildren," their mother said softly, her voice trembling slightly. Alex froze, caught between anger and disbelief. 7 years, 7 long years of abstinence, and now they showed up wanting access to Eli and Mia. The audacity burned like acid in Alex's chest. "Why now?" Alex asked sharply, crossing their arms. "You haven't cared before." Their father hesitated, glancing at his wife before answering. "Your sister, she told us she doesn't want children. Ever." The words hit like a punch. Of course, this wasn't about reconnecting with Alex or meeting their grandchildren. It was about replacing what they'd lost. Claire had chosen a different path, and suddenly Alex's kids became plan B. Alex shook their head, jaw tightening. "No." Their mother blinked, startled. "What?" "You don't get to waltz back into my life because it suits you," Alex snapped. "You gave up that right when you chose Claire over me, over us." Tears welled in their mother's eyes, but Alex refused to soften. This wasn't about guilt trips or emotional manipulation. This was about protecting their family. "I'm sorry," Alex said firmly, stepping back, "but you can't see them." And with that, they closed the door, leaving their parents standing bewildered on the other side. Later that night, Alex sat with Sam, recounting the encounter. His expression darkened as he listened, his grip tightening around his coffee mug. They think they can just show up whenever it's convenient for them, Alex muttered bitterly, like I'll forget everything they've done. Sam placed a reassuring hand on Alex's shoulder. We'll handle this together, he promised. Whatever happens, we protect our family. Alex nodded, grateful for Sam's unwavering support. But as they stared out the window at the darkened cityscape, doubt crept in. Would their parents give up so easily? Or would this be the start of something far more complicated? Only time would tell. The cafe was a small, unassuming place tucked between towering office buildings. Its windows were smudged with fingerprints, and the air smelled faintly of burnt espresso and stale pastries. Alex had stumbled upon it years ago during one of their rare lunch breaks away from the office. It wasn't fancy, but it was quite a refuge from the chaos outside. Today, though, something felt different. Alex sat at their usual corner table, scrolling absently through emails while sipping lukewarm coffee. The weight of recent events pressed heavily on them. Their parents' unexpected visit still lingered in their mind like an unwelcome shadow. Every time they thought about it, anger bubbled up, followed by a deep sadness they couldn't quite shake. They tried to focus on work, but the words blurred together on the screen. That's when they noticed the journal. It lay forgotten on the seat across from them, wedged awkwardly beneath a stack of books someone had left behind. At first glance, it looked ordinary, leather-bound with frayed edges, its cover worn smooth by countless hands. But as Alex flipped it open, curiosity got the better of them. Inside were pages filled with handwritten notes, fragments of thoughts, musings, and reflections that seemed both deeply personal and oddly universal. What if you could start over? The question leapt off the page, bold and unapologetic. Beneath, the writer continued, we spend so much of our lives chasing what others expect of us: money, success, validation. But at what cost? What happens when we stop running long enough to ask ourselves who we really are and what we truly want? Alex froze, their fingers tracing the ink as if trying to absorb its meaning. These weren't just random scribbles, they were deliberate, almost prophetic. Each entry explored themes of regret, resilience, and reinvention. Some passages read like poetry, others like diary entries. One stood out in particular. Family is supposed to be your anchor, yet sometimes it feels more like a chain. How do you break free without losing yourself entirely? A chill ran down Alex's spine. It was as if the writer knew exactly what they'd been through: the years of neglect, the inheritance betrayal, the painful decision to cut ties. Yet how could that be? This journal belonged to someone else, someone whose life likely bore no resemblance to theirs. Still, the parallels were undeniable. As Alex turned another page, a loose sheet of paper slipped out and fluttered to the floor. Bending down to retrieve it, they found a sketch, a simple drawing of a tree with sprawling roots and branches. Scrawled beneath it were the words, roots keep us grounded, but branches let us reach for the sky. They stared at the image for a moment, feeling an inexplicable connection to it. It reminded them of Mia, their daughter, who loved climbing trees in the park. She often said she wanted to touch the clouds someday. For the first time in days, Alex smiled. Just then, a voice interrupted their thoughts, looking for answers. Startled, Alex glanced up to see a woman standing nearby, her arms crossed and a bemused expression on her face. She was dressed casually in paint-splattered jeans and a faded hoodie, her curly hair tied back in a messy bun. A sketch pad peeked out from under her arm. Not really, Alex stammered, closing the journal quickly. I just found this here. I think someone left it. The woman nodded knowingly. Yeah, people leave stuff all the time. Most of it ends up in the lost and found box. But that one, she gestured toward the journal. That one's special. Whoever wrote it poured their soul into those pages. Alex hesitated. Do you know who it belongs to? She shrugged. No idea. I've seen it around before, though. Always wonder what kind of person would write something so raw and honest. Her gaze lingered on Alex for a moment, longer than expected, as if searching for something beneath the surface. Then, with a grin, she extended her hand. I'm Mia, by the way. Not the owner of the journal, just a regular customer. Alex shook her hand, noting the irony of her name matching their daughter's. Alex, they replied cautiously. Mia plopped down into the chair opposite them without invitation. So what brings you here? You don't strike me as the type to hang out in dingy cafes unless you're hiding from something or someone. Her bluntness caught Alex off guard, but there was no malice in her tone. If anything, she seemed genuinely curious. It's complicated, Alex admitted after a pause. Mia raised an eyebrow. Isn't it always? For reasons they couldn't explain, Alex found themselves opening up. Maybe it was the anonymity of the setting, or maybe it was the way Mia listened not with pity or judgment, but with genuine interest. Whatever it was, Alex began talking. They spoke haltingly at first, choosing their words carefully. But as Mia nodded encouragingly, they gradually revealed more: their strained relationship with their parents, the inheritance debacle, even the recent confrontation at their doorstep. When they finally stopped, Mia leaned back in her chair, studying them thoughtfully. "Sounds like you've been carrying a lot of baggage," she said at last. "But here's the thing: you don't have to carry it forever." Alex frowned. "It's not that simple. My family, they've hurt me in ways I can't just forgive or forget." "I'm not saying you should," Mia countered gently. "Forgiveness isn't about excusing bad behavior. It's about freeing yourself from the hold it has over you. Holding on to anger only keeps you tethered to the past." Her words struck a nerve. Alex had spent years building walls to protect themselves from further pain, but now those walls felt suffocating. Was Mia right? Could letting go actually be liberating? Before Alex could respond, Mia added, "You ever hear the saying, you can't pour from an empty cup? You need to take care of yourself before you can give anything to anyone else, including your kids." The mention of Eli and Mia hit home. Alex had always prided themselves on being a devoted parent, but lately they've been consumed by bitterness that they barely recognized the person staring back in the mirror. Was their resentment affecting their children too? Over the next hour, their conversation shifted seamlessly between lighthearted banter and profound insights. Mia shared snippets of her own life: how she'd walked away from a lucrative design job to pursue art full time, despite fierce opposition from her family. "They didn't understand why I'd give up stability for something so uncertain," she explained. "But living authentically means making choices that align with your values, even if they scare you." Her courage inspired Alex, though they couldn't imagine taking such a leap themselves. Still, Mia planted a seed of possibility, one that refused to be ignored. By the time they parted ways, Alex felt lighter, as if some invisible burden had lifted. Before leaving, Mia handed them a business card scrawled with her number. "If you ever need to talk or vent, feel free to call. Sometimes it helps to have someone outside your bubble to bounce ideas off of." Alex thanked her, slipping the card into their pocket alongside the journal. As they stepped back onto the bustling street, the city seemed less overwhelming somehow. For the first time in weeks, they allowed themselves to entertain the idea of change, not drastic or immediate, but gradual and intentional. That night, Alex sat alone in their dimly lit bedroom, flipping through the journal once more. They paused on a passage near the end. "Change begins with a single question: what if? What if I dared to dream bigger? What if I chose myself for once?" Tears welled in their eyes as they closed the book, clutching it tightly against their chest. Somewhere deep inside, a spark ignited, a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, it wasn't too late to rewrite their story. But where to begin? The journal had become more than just a collection of thoughts. It was a lifeline, a mirror reflecting Alex's own struggles back at them. Each entry resonated deeply, as if the writer had somehow tapped into Alex's soul. But who was this person? What kind of life had they led to produce such raw, unfiltered wisdom? The questions gnawed at Alex, refusing to let go. One evening, after tucking Eli and me into bed, Alex sat at the kitchen table with their laptop open. They typed leather-bound journal into a search engine, half expecting nothing useful to come up. Instead, they stumbled upon an old article from a local newspaper about a former employee of their company, a woman named Elena Torres, who had abruptly quit years ago. The accompanying photo showed her holding the exact same journal Alex now possessed. Elena's story fascinated Alex. According to the article, she'd been a rising star in the tech industry, known for her innovative ideas and relentless work ethic. Yet one day, without warning, she walked away from it all. Rumors swirled. Some said she'd burned out, others claimed she'd inherited money and decided to live off grid. Whatever the truth, Elena vanished from the corporate world entirely. Driven by curiosity and perhaps something deeper, Alex dug further. Social media yielded little, but a few obscure blog posts hinted that Elena now lived in a rural town several hours outside the city. One post included a blurry photo of her standing in front of a rustic cabin surrounded by trees. Something about the image stirred Alex an ache for simplicity, for space to breathe. The next morning, Alex told Sam they needed a weekend getaway. He raised an eyebrow but didn't press too hard. "Just promise me you'll actually relax," he said, kissing their forehead. "No emails, no calls." "I promise," Alex replied, though they weren't entirely sure what awaited them. The drive to Elena's town felt surreal. As skyscrapers gave way to rolling hills and endless fields, Alex felt tension melting away. By the time they arrived, late afternoon sunlight bathed the landscape in golden hues. Following directions scrawled on a crumpled map, Alex pulled into a dirt driveway leading to a modest cabin nestled among towering pines. Elena greeted them warmly, her smile genuine yet tinged with caution. She looked older than in the newspaper photo, her hair streaked with silver, but her eyes sparkled with intelligence and kindness. "You must be Alex," she said, extending a hand. "I wasn't sure you'd really come." "How did you know it was me?" Alex asked, surprised. Elena chuckled softly. "Let's just say I've been expecting someone to track me down eventually. That journal has a way of finding its way to people who need it most." Over tea brewed from herbs grown in her garden, Elena shared pieces of her story. She spoke candidly about her years in the corporate grind, the pressure to perform, the sacrifices she made along the way. "I thought I was building a legacy," she admitted, stirring her mug absently. "But every promotion felt emptier than the last. I realized I was climbing a ladder leaning against the wrong wall." Her voice softened as she described leaving everything behind. "It wasn't easy. People called me crazy. My family stopped speaking to me for a while, but staying would have meant losing myself completely. And once you lose yourself," she trailed off, shaking her head. Alex listened intently, feeling both admiration and unease. Elena's courage inspired them, but the idea of walking away from their own life seemed impossible. "What about your kids?" Alex blurted before they could stop themselves. "If you have any, I mean." Elena smiled knowingly. "Ah, yes, I do. 2 boys, both grown now. When I left my job, they were teenagers. It wasn't easy for them. They resented me at first. But over time, they came to understand why I did it. Now we're closer than ever because they see I chose authenticity over convenience." Her words struck a chord. Alex thought of Eli and Mia, imagining how they might react if Alex suddenly undid their lives. Would they understand someday, or would they feel abandoned? As dusk settled over the countryside, Alex found themselves opening up to Elena in ways they hadn't anticipated. They recounted their strained relationship with their parents, the inheritance betrayal, and the recent confrontation at their doorstep. Elena listened patiently, nodding occasionally but never interrupting. When Alex finished, Elena leaned forward, her expression thoughtful. "Family is complicated," she began. "Sometimes the people who should love us unconditionally are the ones who hurt us the most. But here's the thing: you can't control their actions. All you can do is decide how much power you're willing to give them over your life." Alex frowned. "But what if cutting them off feels selfish, like I'm depriving my kids of grandparents?" Elena sighed gently. "Boundaries aren't selfish, they're necessary. You're protecting your children from toxicity, even if it doesn't look that way on the surface. Trust me, they'll thank you for it later." Her certainty was reassuring, yet Alex still wrestled with doubt. Could they truly sever ties forever? Or was there another path, one that allowed for healing without reopening old wounds? Before leaving the next morning, Alex took a walk around Elena's property. The air smelled of pine needles and damp earth, and birds chirped melodiously overhead. For the first time in years, Alex felt a flicker of hope, not for reconciliation with their parents, but for the possibility of change within themselves. Back at the cabin, Elena handed Alex a small bundle wrapped in cloth. Inside was a smooth stone etched with the same tree drawing Alex had seen in the journal. "A reminder," Elena explained. "Roots keep us grounded, but branches let us reach for the sky." Tears welled in Alex's eyes as they hugged Elena tightly. "Thank you," they whispered, unsure whether they were thanking her for the gift, the conversation, or simply existing as proof that transformation was possible. The drive home felt different. The city loomed ahead, its skyline sharp against the horizon, but Alex no longer saw it as a prison. Maybe it wasn't about escaping the chaos, it was about learning to navigate it on their own terms. When they returned, Sam greeted them with a grin. "So, did you find what you were looking for?" Alex hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Maybe not all the answers, but definitely a starting point." Sam squeezed their hand. "That's all any of us can ask for." As they unpacked their bag, Alex placed the stone on their nightstand, its presence grounding yet hopeful. Change wouldn't happen overnight, but for the first time, Alex believed it could happen. Returning to the city felt like stepping back into a familiar but suffocating rhythm. The skyscrapers loomed taller than before, their glass facades reflecting Alex's weary expression as they navigated crowded streets once again. Despite the clarity gained from Elena's wisdom and the quiet strength found in rural solitude, Alex couldn't shake the weight of unresolved questions pressing on their chest. The confrontation with their parents had left an indelible mark. Their attempts at emotional manipulation, pleading, bribing, guilt tripping only reinforced Alex's decision to protect their family. Yet, it also stirred up old wounds that refused to heal cleanly. Memories of childhood neglect surfaced, unbidden birthdays forgotten, achievements dismissed, love withheld unless earned. For years, Alex had buried these feelings under layers of resilience and determination, but now they bubbled to the surface, raw and unrelenting. Sam noticed the change immediately. "You seem different," he said one evening over dinner. Eli and Mia were engrossed in coloring at the kitchen table, oblivious to the tension simmering between their parents. Alex hesitated, stirring their soup absently. "I don't know how to explain it," they admitted finally. "Talking to Alina made me realize I've been carrying so much anger for so long, but letting go feels impossible." Sam reached across the table, covering Alex's hand with his own. "You don't have to figure everything out right away," he reassured them gently. "Healing isn't linear." His words offered comfort, yet Alex couldn't ignore the gnawing sense that something needed to shift, not just within themselves, but in the way they approach life. They thought about Elena's tree, drawing the roots, grounding her, while the branches reached skyward, and wondered if they could find balance too. A few days later, Alex received a text from Mia, the artist they'd met at the cafe. "Hey stranger, how was your trip? Want to grab coffee sometime?" Surprised by the invitation, Alex hesitated before responding. Part of them wanted to retreat further into solitude to process everything privately. But another part of braver, more curious part recognized the value of connection. Mia had already proven herself insightful and kind. Perhaps she could offer perspective Alex hadn't considered. They agreed to meet the following weekend. When Alex arrived at the cafe, Mia greeted them with a warm smile and 2 steaming cups of coffee. "Thought I'd save you the trouble of deciding," she joked, sliding one cup toward Alex. As they settled into their usual corner, Mia wasted no time diving into conversation. "So, did you find what you were looking for?" Alex sipped their coffee, considering the question carefully. "In a way, yes, but it's complicated." Mia nodded knowingly. "Isn't it always?" Over the next hour, Alex recounted their visit to Elena's cabin, sharing snippets of their conversation without divulging too many personal details. Mia listened intently, interjecting occasionally with thoughtful observations or probing questions. What stood out most to me, Alex confessed eventually, was this idea of authenticity, living true to yourself even when it's hard. "But I'm not sure where to start." Mia tilted her head, studying Alex closely. "Maybe it's less about starting big and more about small, intentional steps. Like, what's one thing you've always wanted to do but never allowed yourself?" The question caught Alex off guard. For years, they'd suppressed hobbies and passions in favor of practicality, painting abandoned after high school, writing relegated to late night scribbles that never saw the light of day. Even their career choice had been driven by expectations rather than genuine interest. "I used to paint," Alex admitted quietly, "but I haven't picked up a brush in ages." Mia grinned. "Well, lucky for you, I teach an art class on weekends. Beginners welcome." Alex laughed nervously. "I don't know." "Come on," Mia urged playfully. "What's the worst that could happen? You make a bad painting? Trust me, everyone starts somewhere." Her enthusiasm was infectious, and though Alex still felt apprehensive, they agreed to give it a try. The art class turned out to be exactly what Alex needed: a safe space to experiment, create, and rediscover parts of themselves long buried beneath responsibility and routine. Surrounded by strangers who shared their vulnerability, Alex began to see beauty in imperfection. Each stroke of the brush became an act of defiance against perfectionism, each color a reminder of possibility. At home, subtle changes emerged. Alex started taking evening walks alone, savoring the crisp autumn air and the rhythmic crunch of leaves beneath their feet. They joined Sam and the kids for weekend hikes, marveling at the vibrant hues of fall foliage and the sound of laughter echoing through the woods. Slowly but surely, they reclaimed pieces of themselves they'd nearly forgotten existed. Yet uncertainty lingered. What did this newfound self-awareness mean for their future? Could they continue working in a job that drained them emotionally and creatively? Was there room for reinvention within the confines of their current life? One night, as Alex tucked Mia into bed, their daughter looked up at them sleepily. "Mommy, will you read me a story?" Alex smiled, brushing a strand of hair from Mia's face. "Of course, sweetheart." Sitting beside her, book in hand, Alex realized something profound. Parenting wasn't just about protecting their children, it was about modeling resilience, courage, and growth. By embracing change, however gradual, they were teaching Eli and Mia the importance of living authentically. Weeks passed, then months. Alex continued attending Mia's art classes, gradually gaining confidence in their abilities. They began journaling again, filling pages with reflections, sketches, and dreams deferred. Some entries echoed Elena's wisdom, others captured fleeting moments of joy or doubt. Through it all, Alex clung to the belief that transformation was possible, even if it required patience and persistence. Their relationship with Sam deepened as well. Conversations grew richer, more vulnerable. Together, they explored ways to simplify their lives, prioritizing experiences over possessions, connection over convenience. It wasn't easy, but neither was it insurmountable. As winter approached, Alex sat by the fireplace one evening, penning a new entry in their journal. What if I dared to dream bigger? What if I chose myself for once? Closing the book, they stared into the flames, feeling a flicker of hope ignite within them. The road ahead remained uncertain, fraught with challenges and unknowns. But for the first time in years, Alex believed they had the tools and the support to navigate it. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough.